Okay, anytime I say one of these bug videos is gonna come out soon, just assume that it's not. We're working on Valve time here. The last Bug Busters video was Spy Bugs like half a year ago. And Spy is inherently a pretty complex class, which leads him to have a lot of bugs. Soldier, in comparison, is a lot simpler, and I don't necessarily mean gameplay-wise, but just the core of the class. You know, he's not disguising his other characters or copying their hats and weapons. But on the other hand, Soldier has like 500 weapons, or 37, but still, that's the most in the game. So that alone leads him to have quite the list of bugs on the wiki. But how many of them still hold up? How many of them are true? Let's find out right now. Okay, our first soldier bug says that taunting while reloading a primary weapon, other than the cow mangler, will cause a rocket to blink in and out of soldier's hand. Yes, it does, and it seems to happen with most taunts and not just the rocket launcher taunt itself. Though it can vary a bit. Cause with the flip taunt, for example, you won't actually see the rocket, but you will see the shadow blinking in and out. And with the fresh brewed victory taunt, the rocket actually comes out of the bag soldier's standing on rather than his hand. But yeah, this will happen with any rocket launcher, aside from the cow mangler, because it doesn't actually load a projectile. And this is actually the first time I'm noticing that the airstrike reloads regular rockets in both its first and third person animations, and not its special custom ones. Maybe that would count as a bug for the airstrike. But that's not what we're talking about. The original bug, that's true. Shooting with a soldier weapon, followed by a quick weapon switch, will result in the sound being cut off. This one is actually really obvious if you're actively listening for it, but easy to miss if you're not. If you fire a rocket and quickly switch to another weapon, the rocket launcher's firing sound will be instantly cut off. The rocket will still make a sound when it hits something, but the sound of the rocket launcher firing will just stop. The same goes for firing and then switching off the shotgun, the sound just stops. This almost seems like it should be a universal bug for all classes, because nothing about this seems very soldier specific, but it very much is, cause no other class has this issue. Let's take a look. When shooting a rocket underwater, if it comes out of the water, it will still have the bubble particles following it instead of the regular flame particles used on land. So yeah, if you fire a rocket underwater, it'll have bubbles trailing it. But if those rockets are fired out of the water, they'll keep that bubble effect. Honestly, it doesn't even look that weird, it just kinda looks like there's water coming off of the rocket. But yeah, it's probably not supposed to technically be that way, so I guess it's a bug, and it is true. Now, moving on to the original, despite mostly being a reskin, it does have its own bugs. For example, using minimized view models or high view model FOV values causes another soldier arm to appear on the left. Unlike what the description kind of implies, this doesn't seem to happen with minimized view models even with the max FOV settings that the game normally allows. But if you set your view model FOV beyond what the settings normally allow, starting at view model FOV 95, you'll start seeing a tiny bit of soldier's finger on the left side of the screen, regardless of minimized view models or not. Bringing the models out further will reveal this ominous hand that just kinda sits there. And bringing your view model that far out is something you could totally do, it's not cheating, but 70 is the max that the game settings normally allow. So it's kinda like complaining that the model's arms get cut off at some point. It's not really designed to be that far out. But yeah, it is still true. Switching from the original to any banners will cause the arms to briefly appear on the opposite side before returning to normal. This one confused me a little bit, but it becomes a lot more obvious when you do have the view model FOV set higher. When you switch from the rocket launcher to the buff banner, the soldier just pulls it out on the right side like normal. Though with the original, it starts all the way on the left side of the screen, but quickly goes back to the proper position. If you slow the animation down, you'll actually see that the original itself transforms into the bugle, and then soldier's right arm flies in from the left side and grabs it. This one is actually almost unnoticeable with lower fields of view, but the higher you go, the more obvious it gets. The reloading sound effect does not play, instead it defaults to the rocket launcher's reload sound. However, other players are able to hear the reloading sound effect playing. The original has a bunch of unique sounds inspired by the original Quake rocket launcher that it's based on, but it still uses the rocket launcher's reload sound. But when listening to another player reload the original, it makes this quiet thud sound every time it loads a rocket. It's something that's pretty easy to miss, but it also seems likely that this was intended to be the first-person reload sound as well. And what's slightly more interesting, I think, is that the rocket launcher's reload is actually completely silent from the perspective of other players. You won't hear the reload sound at all. And it turns out that when it comes to stock weapons at least, only the rocket launcher and sniper rifle have silent reloads from the view of other players. Everything else just makes the noises you'd expect. So I guess that's another bug for those two weapons, but the original reload sound bug appears to be true as well. On to the rocket jumper. The soldier with it equipped will not be allowed to pick up fallen body parts or beer bottles in player destruction. The rocket jumper, of course, does not let you pick up the intel and capture the flag or the jack and pastime, but that also applies to pick up items in player destruction as well, despite that not being listed in the description. If TF allow taunt switch is set to 1, and the player performs a kamikaze taunt and quickly switches to the rocket jumper, the player will take no blast damage and be launched into the air. TF allow taunt switch 1, I assume, lets you switch weapons while you're taunting, but it doesn't seem to have any effect. But if it's set to 2 though, that seems to work. And yeah, you could switch to the rocket jumper mid-kamikaze taunt and you'd take no damage. I'm not really sure if that's a bug or not though, but it's true. And hey, back in my day, taking no damage from the equalizer taunt was a feature. When crit boosted, the rocket jumper sound effect will be replaced by the rocket launcher sound effect. The rocket jumper has its own distinct firing sound, but it will in fact use the same crit sound as a stock rocket launcher if the attack is a crit. A lot of sound-based bugs on Soldier, huh? The Mangler is a weapon that's pretty simple stat-wise, but it does have a lot of unique elements about it that do lead it to have quite a few bugs. And our first one says that the weapon will fire a charge shot even if the charging process is interrupted by being stunned or the soldier's team losing. This is true. If a soldier on the losing team begins charging the alt fire just before the game ends, it will still fire, meaning you could technically attack when you shouldn't be able to. This also includes being scared by ghosts, and being stunned by the supernova power-up in manpower. If the player changes from the Mangler to another primary weapon using the resupply locker while charging a shot, they'll be stuck in the slower moving speed until they change classes, die, or switch back to the Mangler and fire another charge shot. This one I've actually shown in a video once before, so yes, it can happen. If Soldier just moves too fast for your liking, you could use this simple trick to always move at crouch speed. Why not? The weapon does not glow when mini-crit boosted. As you can see, the shotgun and the shovel glow a whitish color when mini-crit boosted, but the Mangler has no change at all. There's actually a few weapons in TF2 that had this problem, and the Mangler is one of them. Killing a player with a charge shot may not display the crit death icon if it was a direct hit. I'm assuming this means the red background behind a weapon in the kill feed if the kill was a crit or a mini-crit. And, okay, so this does say may not, but I tried this over 50 times, and it was there every single time. I guess it's technically possible that it might happen sometimes, but as far as I know, there's no proof of this, and I think I did it enough times to say that this one's probably busted. If the soldier dies from their own Mangler, the vaporization effect uses the red version regardless of the team. As you can see, on the blue team, I kill myself with the Mangler, and I will vaporize using the red effects. But it actually goes further than that, because the red version uses the blue effects if you kill yourself. So it'll actually just use the opposite team's effects. That's not what the bug says, but it is kind of half true. Several pyro achievements can be earned using the afterburn from the charge shot. Well, at the time I copied this from the wiki, it did say several achievements, but now it just says a pyro achievement, without actually saying what it is. So I don't really know, but I did try a bunch of them using an alt account with no achievements. Like Burn Ward for igniting 3 medics with Ubercharge, but nothing there. Baptism by Fire for forcing 10 burning enemies to jump into water, nothing there either. Cooking the Books for igniting 5 enemies carrying the intelligence, no. Trailblazer, ignite 10 enemies that recently used a teleporter, nothing there either. Spontaneous Combustion for igniting disguised spies, also no. And I'm actually fairly positive that you used to be able to get the achievement called Pilot Light that you normally get for igniting a rocket jumping soldier by rocket jumping with a charge shot from the Mangler and lighting yourself on fire at the same time. But that doesn't work now either. And I'm pretty sure that they fixed classes getting each other's achievements a while back. So unless someone could figure out what that achievement is, I would say this is probably busted too. Primary and secondary fire shots are not affected by the vaccinator's damage resistance, however the Ubercharges do. Yeah, we covered this in the medic video, and at the time I'm recording this, it's actually still on the Mangler page. But no, this one isn't true. Because at long range, both the rocket launcher and the Mangler have a base damage of 48, and both are reduced by 10% by the vaccinator's regular resistance to 43. So yeah, not true. If the player dies while carrying the Cow Mangler as an active weapon, the weapon's particle effects will appear when spectating players while the player is waiting for their respawn. If you've ever used the Cow Mangler, then yeah, you've probably seen this one. Because when you die, you'll actually still see the Cow Mangler's little electric thingies pop up on the screen every once in a while you're spectating. The first Beggar's bazooka bug is one that I would usually consider not even mentioning because it just kind of says occasionally without giving any more information, but I kind of think it's interesting enough to at least mention. It says that rockets from the Beggar's bazooka will occasionally hang stationary in the air until a player runs into it. The Beggar's bazooka was a pretty buggy weapon when it first came out, and this bug actually dates all the way back to 2012, so there's a pretty decent chance it's been fixed, but if anyone's ever seen this before, let me know, because I think that sounds pretty cool. The next Beggar's bazooka bug says that tapping the primary fire will cause the shot to not play the firing sound. Sometimes this is true, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes I've gotten the sound to play by tapping it, and sometimes it doesn't work. I'm not really sure what else I could say about that one. If a player on the losing team is loading rockets as the round ends, the sound will keep playing through humiliation. And if you're on the losing team and you're loading rockets as the round ends, and you stop holding the primary fire, everything just stops. The sound doesn't keep going, and you don't keep loading rockets. There's more to this one, but this part of the bug is just not true. Once you stop holding down the button, everything stops. But yeah, this one is a two-parter, and the other part says that if the player keeps holding the primary fire after losing, the soldier will keep loading, then will misfire and fire 3 rockets during humiliation, potentially killing the other team. Well, you don't actually fire the 3 rockets, but part of this is true. If you start reloading before the round ends, and continue to hold the firing button during humiliation, you'll eventually keep loading all the rockets until you blow yourself up. And even when that happens, the reload sound stops there too, so the beginning part of this is definitely not true, but being able to continue to load during humiliation is. Taunting after loading a rocket will not release the rockets from the player's weapon clip. Additionally, toggle taunts will store rockets in the same way, and they'll be released if the taunt ends or if the taunt button is pressed again. This one I'm sure most of you are probably aware of. You are actually able to taunt during the reload and save the rockets until the taunt ends. And if it's a partner taunt, you could trick them to coming over for a friendly high five and then blow up in their face. It's kind of fun, but it is something that should be fixed. If the player dies while reloading the weapon, the reloading sound will continuously play until the player respawns. But it doesn't seem to. I tried dying by killing myself by misfire, reloading while falling to my death, and just good old being killed by an enemy while reloading, and none of them seem to continue the sound effect. So I guess this one's not true. In the pastime game mode, if the player passes the jack to a player that currently reloading rockets, the player will continue reload rockets and cause a misfire. Awkward wording aside, this would be very amusing if it was true, but it's not. All that happens is that a little message pops up that says you cannot carry the jack until you're able to holster your weapon. Finally moving on to soldier secondaries, starting with the buff banner, but these bugs actually do apply to the battalion's backup and the Conqueror as well. If the player switches to another secondary weapon while the rage is active, the mini crit buff will be deployed until the rage is depleted. And yeah, you can activate the buff banner and switch to the shotgun with the resupply cabinet, and you've got 10 seconds of shotgun mini crits. And of course the same goes for the other banners with their own respective effects too. It's maybe not all that practical because you do have to go all the way back to spawn, but it is something you could do. If the rage meter is full and the user switches to another banner and then touches the resupply locker, the rage will be carried over. This one is also true. If you have full rage and decide you didn't want to use that banner, you could just swap over to another banner and that one will be full too. But unlike what the wiki claims, it doesn't actually have to be full to transfer. Any amount of rage can be swapped over to another banner. This works between any of the banners, so you can swap them as many times as you want. The Conqueror does charge with less damage though, so hypothetically you could use it to charge the other two faster, but like the previous bug, it does require you to go all the way back to spawn, so it's not exactly very convenient. When activating the banner, holding the primary fire will prevent the banner from activating. Releasing the primary fire will activate the buff. Yeah. I'm like 99% sure that's an intended feature. But on the wiki, this bug actually previously said that if the rage meter is full and the user delays the release of the banner after the bugle call, by holding down the primary fire key before humiliation happens on the losing team, the player will still be able to activate its effects by letting go of the fire key. For whatever reason, it was changed to just say delaying the activation. But yeah, you can store any of the banner's effects until after losing a game by activating it beforehand. This means you can actually block an enemy team's winning crits with the battalion's backup. It's a very minor bug, but at least this one actually seems like a bug. The gunboats doesn't appear when inspecting it from the backpack menu. No, they do not. For the battalion's backup, the damage resistance scales instead of the set 35%. It seems to be based on ramp up and fall off. This one actually has a link to the custom TF2 weapons video that demonstrates this. So yeah, it is true. The battalion's backup is supposed to resist 35% of incoming damage. And it does on weapons without ramp up or fall off, or if the weapon is in the exact right position to deal its base damage. But the revolver, for example, normally deals 21 damage at long range. But against the battalion's backup, it deals only 7. It should be doing 14. And at close range, the revolver deals 60 damage, but against the battalion's backup, it deals 46, when it should be dealing 39. So the battalion's backup is actually better for taking long range damage, and worse for taking close range damage than the description lets on. And I'm pretty positive that the battalion's backup resistance is the only resistance in the game that works like that. So yeah, it's really weird. Moving on to Soldier's last banner, the health regen of the Conjurer will reset from non-damaging effects such as the rocket jumper. And yes, it will. Apparently, this is because in the game's code, the rocket jumper's rockets do damage equal to the rocket launcher times 0 in order to keep the knockback consistent between the two weapons. If the player holds down the primary fire at the end of activation to keep the buff ready for deployment, the soldier will lower the conch. The other backpack weapons have the soldier keep his bugle held until the button is released. Just by reading this one, I know that that's probably not true. I don't think I've ever noticed that before. And that's probably because the soldier will in fact lower the horn with all 3 banners in both first and third person while holding the buff after activating. So yeah, I don't really know where they got this one from. The strange variant of the Conjurer can rank up during battles with bots and when SV cheats is set to 1. Right here I'm playing with bots and cheats on, and you can see it's at 435 banners deployed, but now it's at 436. Despite this only being listed on the Conjurer's page, it's actually true for all the banners. My buff banner went from 614 to 615, and my battalion's backup goes from 393 to 394. So it's true for all of them, not just the conch. For the man-treads, while jumping using the cow mangler, there is no third-person stomping animation, resulting in a reference pose. I'm gonna be honest, until semi-recently, I never even noticed that the man-treads had their own animation. But yeah, Soldier normally kicks his legs when falling after a rocket jump, but with the man-treads, he'll straighten his legs. However, this stomping animation does not work if the cow mangler is a soldier's active weapon, and will cause him to go into an A pose until he hits the ground. While falling from a high place with a melee weapon out, the man-tread stomping animation uses the animation for the rocket launcher. And yeah, if you're falling with the man-treads and take your melee weapon out, the soldier will still hold it like it's a rocket launcher. But when you swing it, it does use the correct animations though. Like the gunboats, the man-treads doesn't appear when inspecting it from the backpack menu. And no, they do not. In the client view, while crouching, the Righteous Bison's projectiles will appear much higher than the weapon model. Well, I wouldn't say much higher, but yeah, from the first-person perspective, the Bison's projectile doesn't seem to change the position it's fired from when you're crouching, leading it to be a bit higher than it should be. The Righteous Bison's projectile can collide with certain invisible map elements that it's supposed to pass through, effectively making the projectile disappear mid-air in some map locations. Examples include the lowest level of the wooden platforms near the rocks on both sides of the control point on Gully Wash, and the room with the raised pathway near the final spawn on Frontier. On this area to the side of the second control point on Gully Wash, the Righteous Bison's lasers simply don't go through, and firing it while in this section will have the lasers just stop instantly. The only way I'm able to damage this other soldier with the Bison is by standing directly next to him and firing. And the same goes for the top section of this room on Frontier. It works fine on the bottom section, but the lasers do not work on the top part. Weird. If a player dies with the base jumper's parachute deployed, the parachute will stay open while the player's ragdoll falls at standard speed. As amusing as it would be to see a player's dead body slowly float to the ground, if you kill a parachuting player, they will just plummet to the ground while the chute stays open. It's really not a big deal, but I guess ideally it should retract as soon as the player dies. The base jumper doesn't appear when inspecting it from the backpack menu. I think you're probably starting to see a pattern here with some of soldiers' wearable weapons, because no, it does not. Then there's a second bug listed that says the base jumper doesn't show while inspecting it from the loadout menu. Is this different? Can you inspect any weapon directly from the loadout menu? I don't know what this means, and I'm pretty sure it's only listed for the base jumper. Despite the patch notes mentioning the panic attack spread being the same regardless of server setting, its spread becomes tighter if random spread is disabled. This is one of relatively few bugs on the wiki to actually have a link to something, and it just shows this picture. It doesn't actually show it in action. So let's take a look. Here it is with spread on, and here it is with spread off. It's kinda hard to compare them directly in-game next to each other, because firing the second shot will cause some of the old bullet holes to disappear. But in editing, we could just compare them side to side. And, are you seeing any difference? Cause, I don't think I am. If you lay them directly over each other, you won't even see much change at all. The way the bullet holes look changes each time, but in terms of spread, it looks basically the same. Here's comparing them at closer range, and it still looks basically the same. Even if you fire a shot with spread on, then turn it off and don't move at all and fire in the exact same spot, it looks to be exactly the same. If it was true, the one with the spread disabled would be smaller, but they have the exact same bullet pattern. So unless I'm missing something really obvious, I'm pretty sure this is busted. And onto soldiers' melee weapons. Fire and projectile damage from the huntsman may inadvertently be increased against the player with the paint train. Or at least that's what the bug used to say. Now it just says fire damage from the huntsman may inadvertently be increased against the player. To start with, yes, the huntsman will do more damage to a soldier or demo man with the paint train equipped, but that's because the huntsman is considered bullet damage in general. It's kinda weird, but not a bug. But for the second part, I'm not even really sure if the fire damage could be increased. Even if, for whatever reason, the game thought afterburn from the huntsman was considered bullet damage, the paint train only raises bullet damage by 10%, and afterburn damage from the huntsman would only be 4 per tick. Even if it did multiply that fire damage by 1.1 times, it would still only round out to 4. And then, for example, if a demo man has the tide turner, which resists fire damage by 15%, it will reduce afterburn to 3. But if he also has the paint train, it's still only 3. When it could possibly round back up to 4 if this was true, maybe. But unless there's some other scenario where you could possibly see a difference this small, if it even exists at all, then I think it might be busted. For the half Zatoichi, in manpower, using the grappling hook when below 50 health will kill the player instead of not letting them use the grappling hook. Normally, if the half Zatoichi is out and you're below 50 health, you can't switch weapons at all. But sure enough, you do just flop over and die when you try to switch the grappling hook when below 50 health. And just out of curiosity, I wanted to see if you could be forced to holster the half Zatoichi by being past the jack at pastime, and you can, but if you're below 50 health, you just can't pick it up at all. So unfortunately, you can't use this to kill your own teammates. But a soldier or a demo man can use the half Zatoichi to kill themselves in manpower, so that's something. Taunting with the Shred Alert, Fresh Brewed Victory, or Spent Well Spirits while using the bloodied version of the half Zatoichi will taunt with the red version of the equipment regardless of the team. And yeah, if the half Zatoichi is bloody from getting a kill, the Fresh Brewed Victory soldier will stand on a red version of the bag, the Shred Alert will always use the red guitar, and the Spent Well Spirits will use a red grenade regardless of the team. It's not listed on the wiki, but this will also cause the rocket from the rocket jockey to always be red as well. And I assume the same thing probably happens for Demo Man's chair and flask on the poop deck taunt, but I don't have it yet, so I guess we gotta save that for Demo Man bugs. The rest of it's true though. The extra range of the Disciplinary action allows the user to hit enemies completely behind them from point blank range. It sure does. If someone is directly behind you, you can hit them with a Disciplinary action. Sometimes the extra range will appear to hit an enemy and make the correct sound, but will not register a speed boost and vice versa. This is due to teammates not being lag compensated in the way the opposing team is. And yeah, anybody who's ever used a disciplinary action at all knows this is true. You could hit someone, you could hear the noise, but sometimes it just won't give you a speed boost. The disciplinary action uses the shovel sound effect when a critical hit occurs. Here's how it sounds normally. And here's the crit sound. And this is in fact the same crit sound as a shovel. However, if a crit disciplinary action connects against an enemy, it will make the correct whip sound effect that is distinct from the shovel. So it is true, but only if it doesn't connect. The state of launched by explosion can be prolonged by jumping at the exact moment the player lands, which allows the market gardener to crit after technically landing, and can theoretically be extended indefinitely. This is another one that I'm sure most people are probably aware of. It's really more of a engine bug, I guess, and it's not market gardener specific, but like the description says, it does allow you to crit with it after technically landing. And getting the jump and actually landing the market gardener afterwards took way more tries than I would ever show, but I did it. It's pretty tricky to pull off, but not that hard, but like the first 5 times I did it, I just horribly missed my market gardener. But hey, I only need to do it once for the video, and then I can just show it back to back over and over, and act like I did it every time. And finally, we reached the home stretch with soldier achievements. The Death from Above and Duty Bound achievements can be obtained by being launched to the air by enemy explosives instead of rocket jumping. The achievement Death from Above is for rocket jumping and killing 2 enemies before you land, and Duty Bound is for rocket jumping and killing an enemy with Equalizer before you land or just after landing. And Duty Bound can actually be gotten by being launched by an enemy explosive. But Death from Above does not seem to work this way. We tried it a bunch of times and never actually got it, despite launching the soldier in the exact same way we did for Duty Bound. So the second part of this one is true, but the first part, I guess not. But the Death from Above achievement can also be earned by killing 2 enemies with the soldier's kamikaze taunt. As you can see, in addition to getting Spray of Defeat for blowing someone up with the kamikaze taunt, the soldier also got Death from Above. Interestingly, Duty Bound can actually also be gotten just by killing someone with the Equalizer taunt, but that's currently not listed on the wiki. The Worth 1,000 Words achievement can be obtained by using any special taunt, such as the High Five, as long as the player's shotgun is deployed. And yes, it can. This soldier kills me with the shotgun deployed, offers me a high five, and then gets the achievement. The Geneva Contravention achievement currently displays a 5 instead of a 3, due to the achievement's original requirements. Not really a bug, but yeah, in the Manconomy update they lowered the requirement from 5 to 3 and just never updated the icon. Despite the description, the Geneva Contravention achievement doesn't require the enemies to be defenseless. The achievement can be obtained by killing players on the winning team. And that achievement is normally earned for killing 3 defenseless enemies on the losing team when the round ends. But according to this, if a soldier on the losing team manages to kill 3 enemies on the winning team after the round ends, then hypothetically they should get the achievement. This could be done with the kamikaze taunt, or through the Cow Mangler and Beggar's bazooka bugs we saw earlier. But the kamikaze taunt is the easiest, so we'll go with that. And after getting some teams of 3 or more human players, we tried it out, and Squib ruined the take. So after another 3 minutes of waiting, we tried it out again, and it works. So that's pretty neat. And that's it. That was episode 4 of Bug Busters, with many more to come. When will those be out? I don't know. I'm not even gonna guess, because if I do guess, then it's never gonna happen. But you can tell me which class you guys want to see next. I'm kinda leaning engineer, but I'll let you guys decide. So yeah, this was a pretty long video and took quite a while to get everything together, but thanks for waiting and thanks for watching, as well as a super special thanks to my patrons like Varick, Captain Forex, Egox, Dex, Zero Attention, Possibly Vinegar, Caponicus, Kelso the Pirate, Pilsman's Fox, Kybrid96, Scout with a Name, Glump, and Salt God. That's a lot of people now. But yeah, alright. Peace out, dogs.